There were huge advancements across several AI fronts this week. Autonomous agents, robotics, scientific breakthroughs.
And babies, Kevin. It's AI for babies.
Yes, Gavin, babies for sure. We'll actually show you how you can make your own baby podcast because that has taken over the entire internet. But in the meantime, new models from Anthropic and Google's AlphaEvolve are showing that AI can actually generate and create new algorithms. And this is
And OpenAI introduces HealthBench to start tracking updates in AI science, plus a very cool new update from Tesla's Optimus robot.
Why are you still a baby?
Better question is, Kevin, why are you not a baby?
That's actually very fair. Also, the new Pope is focused on artificial intelligence.
A massive drama in the AI copyright fight.
You know, I think this is how my wife sees me whenever we argue.
This is AI for babies and humans. Welcome, everybody. A big week in AI. We are going to get some major announcements next week with Google's I.O. But before we get to that, a lot of stuff has dropped this week, Kevin. It feels like we are starting to ramp up again. I call this AI season. Would you call it that?
Yes, I have to take my Allegra. I start to get the sniffles and I get very inflamed, but that's how I know a new foundational model is about to drop, Gavin. There's something in the air.
We're going to start with a clip from Sam Altman at a very good interview he did with Sequoia Capital in their office. And I want to play this clip because it's going to introduce a bunch of the stuff we're talking about today.
At a higher level of detail, I kind of think 2025 will be a year of sort of agents doing work. Coding in particular, I would expect to be a dominant category. I think there'll be a few others too. Next year is a year where I would expect more like a sort of AIs discovering new stuff, and maybe we have AIs make some very large scientific discoveries or assist humans in doing that. And you know, I am kind of a believer that most of the sort of real sustainable economic growth in human history comes from, once you've like kind of spread out and colonized the earth, most of it comes from just better scientific knowledge and then implementing that for the world.
I'm sorry. Did he say 2026? Sam Altman. I'm starting to feel like it's more like Slack Altman. Am I right, Gavin?
Because sure, you're right. Keep playing the clip,
discoveries.
Keep playing the clip.
Okay.
And then 27, I would guess, is the year where like that all moves from the sort of intellectual realm to the physical world, and robots.
Robots, right. Not
robots.
Just the sexy ones.
All right, so yes, we've heard this. This is very interesting. We're going to go through each of those things. But Kev, before we jump in, I got to remind everybody what a beautiful voice Sam Altman has. And I could just listen to it for hours. It feels to me like just water pouring over my ears in the most wonderful way.
Oh, I thought that meant like water torture where it's the slow drip. I vibe coded a Sam Altman white noise machine, and it's just him reciting like children's stories and stuff to me, but it's that voice, and I put it on at night once the sleep mask is on, and it sends me right to sleep.
All three of these things we have news on this week, and Sam laid them out by 25, 26, 27. But Kevin, we want to start with 25 and the idea of agents happening this year. There is a massive news story from Google that literally just dropped. AlphaEvolve is a new algorithm discovering AI agent. So this is a big deal. Like we said, Google I.O. is next week, and we assume that they're dropping a few things now so they can get ahead of OpenAI in case they've got some surprises for us. But what's really cool about this is Google has been saying for a while that they are like writing some of the code internally on what they do. This is a new algorithm discovering AI model, meaning that it is not just regurgitating stuff that it has seen before. One of the craziest stats here, Kev, was that in 75% of cases, it discovered the best solution known so far. But in 20% of cases, it improved on the previously best known solution, thus yielding new discoveries. And this is a giant deal.
And this was on, they threw 50 problems at it across like analysis, geometry, combinatorics, Gavin?
I'm a brilliant combinatorics scholar. I've been doing that.
I think
for
my
years.
mom had a combinatorics VHS that she used to do for
Yeah,
fitness.
that's about putting Legos together, right? It's like I can combinatorics the Dark Knight set really well. It's pretty incredible.
It does sound like a knockoff Power Rangers thing that someone had.
Yeah.
Like, we're the combinatorics. But no, so it did find in 20% of those cases solutions that are better than the previously best known solution. And what this really is an engine that creates algorithms and then evaluates them. and improves upon them. So in the larger blog post about this, the diagram, Gavin, is scientist, engineer at the top, which for right now still has a human head. And that's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
That's nice to see that. It has 4 phases. There's a prompt sampler, LLM ensemble, evaluator pool, and a program database. What that basically means is that for now, human person poses a problem. They can give it best known examples or cases if they exist to kind of steer it towards a path. This thing is going to figure out versionings of different prompts to solve it, which LLMs it should use, whether they previously exist or it needs to, generate a custom one. It generates evaluations for the results from those prompts and stores everything in a database that it can iterate on. And then it just basically, I don't want to say brute forces, but it goes at it and finds what's the best program, how do we keep iterating, how do we optimize a solution. And this is going to have applications, as we've seen already, across math and science, obviously, but drug discovery is going to be largely disrupted with things like this. And that might pay huge dividends for us because, you specifically, because of your habits.
I need so many drugs to make my brain work. That's all that matters. Kevin, the thing I want to kind of tell everybody, the normal people in our audience, a little bit about is what I think is most fascinating about this is recursive self-learning. Can you give the TLDR, ELI5 grade school version of the definition of recursive self-learning? And then we can just quickly jump into why this matters.
This is that self-improvement loop that I just said, where it's going to come up with an output, evaluate that output, and see, okay, does this pass or fail the tests, the criteria? If not, go back and keep improving it. And even when you have a solution that works, see if there's another solution that works. Now evaluate those 2 solutions, see which one's better. And it's just it's a cage match. It's a death match. It's a blood
perfect.
sport.
That's perfect. It's a data death match. So two datas fight, one data leaves.
Yeah.
The data that's better is good. So this is, if you've seen all those kind of hockey stick growth ideas around reasoning models and how they've gotten so much smarter over time, this is the thing a lot of AI, both doomers and excited people, have been talking about for a while. If we can build real recursive self-learning, if the AI can start improving on itself, it speeds up the AI development process. In fact, one of the things in this document that I thought was really interesting, they are using AlphaEvolve to already enhance AI training and inference. So that means that there's a whole bunch of technical jargon in this, but what they're saying here is basically this tool, this agent, is already working on the problems of AI itself. And pairing that with another story from The Information where it came out that Google may be introducing kind of an always-on software agent at Google I/O next week, we are talking about this transition from ask your AI to give you an answer and it gives you an answer back to go send your AI off for a while and it comes back and does something significant. I will say there's a lot of people this week who have been talking about O3, OpenAI's latest model, hallucinating a lot, and that could get in the way of this. But the fact that Google's coming out with this data at this level is it's a pretty big deal.
And just to be clear, the problems that this thing could be recursively improving, self-improving, they're not just how do we train a model better or how do we get a little bit of better performance out of it. It could be how are the data centers designed and laid out?
Yeah.
How are the chips that go into those data centers?
Exactly.
Yeah. How can we optimize the chips? How do we all of the problems in that entire stack? And then again, it's not just AI, it's every business and it's every industry. It starts to get wild. And if you think about having this always on agent, which is rumored to be there next week, what does it look like if you are a business that does anything with code, to have an agent on 24/7 that is constantly looking at every new line that gets added, trying to optimize those, trying to automatically pull bugs and fix it. When a customer says, hey, something's broken, it grabs it, throws it into the queue and fixes it. You're giggling because what are you thinking?
I'm just thinking that, the always on agent that does that for my coding is going to run up the craziest API bill. And I think that's the other side of this, is that the always on AIs are just going to cost a fortune to run, and it will become a thing in some ways.
Yes and no. I do think that cost is relative, right? Because as expensive as it might be, and this is where some people start to get really concerned about mass displacement, I bet it's cheaper than benefits and OSHA
yes,
compliance.
You're probably right.
And I bet it's cheaper than, paternity leave or whatever. So that's where it's how much would you, I spent $0, by the way, Gavin, on coding tools 9 months ago. I spend hundreds of dollars on coding tools now, and I am not a coder.
Right.
But the amount of time and energy it would take for me to get proof of concepts made or whatever else, the traditional way, I just couldn't have afforded it. But even though it's expensive, it's still worth it.
Well, and again, if it really solves new science or really comes up with algorithm changes, that's a huge deal, especially for a company as big as Google. Another big story in the same vein this week, Anthropic will be soon updating within a couple weeks. This is from the information. Both Claude Opus and Claude Sonnet. Opus has not been updated for a while. That is their kind of top of the line, state of the art model, the largest model. The big thing here, though, Kevin, is that these are going to be released as reasoning hybrid models, meaning that they will have agentic abilities, but they will also determine when or not to turn on the reasoning itself. And that is kind of a next step in letting the AI decide, okay, for this, I might need reasoning, and for this, I might not. Because I'm sure you've had this experience where you're on ChatGPT and you didn't realize you still have O3 clicked for something like, what time is the Seahawks game this weekend? And it sits there thinking about it for a minute. And you're like, no, I just wanted to get an answer.
It finds ways to train actual Seahawks in various sports. And it's like, okay, here's my 48-page PDF report on how we could get animals to cage fight.
Exactly.
But now, Gavin, what's this about the Starbucks benchmark?
I don't know. What is the Starbucks benchmark?
Anthropic models to conduct market research on potential themes for a new coffee shop they're opening in the East Village in Manhattan.
This is the example that somebody at Anthropic or the source told the information was basically you're going to use the absolute state-of-the-art model to decide if you want to open a coffee shop in the East Village, which I can tell you right now, do not do that. That business is a bad business. The margins are going to be terrible. I love the East Village. I love New York City. I lived there forever, but you do not need to open a coffee shop in the East Village.
And
so
you could use all of the supercomputing power in the world and have 12 Stargates. It's just going to come back and say, make it a rainforest cafe.
Yeah.
That's all.
Oh, no. The East Village
Little
would tear
lightning,
that down. East Village would tear the rainforest
little
cafe.
thunder.
So moving on, the next big thing here in the 2026 bucket was Sam talking about new science and all this other stuff. Obviously, Google's already working on that in 2025.
Slack Altman.
Yeah,
make it trend.
Altman. But there is a cool thing that OpenAI introduced this week called HealthBench. And what HealthBench is a new benchmark to actually see how well these models are doing at improving diagnosis and being able to improve science. And in one particular case, in this instance, we've talked about on the show before about how AI plus doctors were better than doctors themselves, right? Because the AI was smarter. Well, now there is a release where they have talked about the idea that with O3 and GPT 4.1, the AI answers are no longer better with human doctors. They are way better without the humans involved. So we are entering a place where like true data answers, and again, we've heard all the hallucination talk. There's a lot of people out there, including Gary Marcus, who is going off on how much these new models are hallucinating. In this data, they are finding that the AI is doing better as a doctor than human plus AI, which again goes back to this kind of recursive self-learning thing. Like as they get better over time, they will start to get smarter than us and better at deciding things. And, you know, we always talk about this in a lot of ways, like the creative choices are always going to be interesting and weird. And that's a little kind of a personal human thing. But data involving when you get sick, what you're sick with, or what the problem is, or how to solve a disease is data, right? Like, and being able to analyze that is a really big deal.
We also talk often about how benchmarks are one thing, but the vibe check is very real. How does a model feel? How do the responses feel? What sort of output are you getting? I can tell you anecdotally, and I have on this cast before, I would not trust a doctor alone now. And I'm sorry, medical professionals, but like you cannot compete with all of this data coming out of machines. And I used AI to quite literally save a neighbor who was undergoing surgeries and on statins that they should not have been. I used it to assist my mother recently. We are now like fighting with healthcare providers to get access to all of the data and just get all of the tests approved because we want to get that data into AI so that we can have it analyze things. And I do like, I'm sorry for certain medical professionals who don't like this. This isn't like in the past where everybody got WebMD, Gavin, and you'd stub your toe on a coffee table and would come back and go, you got 3 to 4 months. Sorry, you might want to start making arrangements. You know, like everything came back with like, it's cancer. I'm sorry. I know that it's a bug bite, but it's cancer. Like everything was that. This is not the same thing. This is a very, very different beast.
And I've seen my doctor, I've been in a doctor in the last like 6 months, and like I've seen them have ChatGPT up on their machine, right? Like they're actively using it, and it's a good thing. Like it's a really good thing to do, because why wouldn't you want to query like the smartest doctor you knew if you're a normal doctor? And no one is saying that doctors aren't amazing. They are. And part of the thing that doctors do well is talk to people about things that are going wrong with them. Diagnosing is different though, right? Like it's helpful to have the widest data set you can.
When I say to the doctor, give me the results, but in the form of a pirate who's had way too much caffeine, they don't play along. But the AI will, Gavin.
It seems like you might not have much time left. Would you like to go to the Caribbean with me, matey?
What do you mean it's scurvy? I said I pulled my shoulder at the gym.
That's all we know is scurvy. We've been on this boat for 6 months. Anyway, it's a very cool thing. Another thing that kind of adds into this is that OpenAI's head of research just did an interview with Nature, which you can read if you log in. You don't have to pay for it, where he says that AI models are capable of novel research. This is Jacob Pachaki, who is OpenAI's chief scientist, who took over for Ilya Sutskever when Ilya left. Just another good like kind of check mark in the idea that like this is all happening right now. And then Kevin, the 2027 world, which Sam says was going to be the advances in robotics. Well, we know somebody who loves to put out videos and saying things are happening before they're actually there. I still think 2027 is a good number for this, where these will become big. But Tesla's Optimus released a new video. And if you remember when these first came out, they were kind of these weird fabric things, and clearly they were being manipulated by somebody. They really didn't work that well. Tesla's Optimus came out with a video. Let's play it for everybody. That is very nimble and pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah. Actually, Gavin, when this first came out, it was fabric because it was humans stuffed inside of unitards that were supposed to have the styling of this, and did some dance moves that at the time were laughably impossible in the field of robotics. And what is interesting is that, not that we haven't seen very capable, dexterous, choreographed dance moves from Chinese offerings, but here the Optimus appears to be operating, and I have to say appears to be, because we never know, but appears to be operating completely untethered, doing some choreographed dance moves that look very similar to what the human counterpart was doing just a few years ago. So if legitimate and running at 1x speed, which it says it is in the corner, very, very impressive results. They are optimizing and moving very quickly.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here is the Tesla engineers have mentioned they're using this sim to real type of training, which is something we've talked about in the show before, that NVIDIA has talked a lot about, this idea that you can train these models based on real world data, where in this case it's people dancing, obviously, and they put it into the robot itself. And that is another very fast speed up of how this thing can get better and better over time, because in simulated universes, or we're in a simulated universe, but in simulated worlds, you can have this robot train for a lot and then come back and kind of understand this space. I'm just hoping, Kevin, at some point we'll be able to download these directly into our brain so that I can dance like this, because I've never been able to dance like this. I would love to be able to be that nimble of foot as this Tesla robot.
I'm sure that, with one errant software update, I mean, they're going to push a new firmware update, and it's going to try to puppet you like it is a robot, and you may end up losing some limbs in the process, but it's going to make it for a good TikTok. I keep thinking back to when I think it was just like last week, people were really enthralled with, like, you were ready to accept a robot in your home that might karate chop you in the carotid artery.
Yeah, fold
you were ready to do it if it could fold the
ready.
laundry, and that's the thing. So do you still feel that way, like seeing these robots move the way they do and knowing what they could do and knowing that they're stomping on children's feet?
Yes, I was going to say that's so. There is a very funny video that came out of the Unitree robot, which these are really what robots are like
very
right now,
funny,
right?
Says Gavin.
I mean, it's funny in that the kid doesn't get hurt, but you can see the Unitree robot. It's in a mall, maybe in China, and like the robot just kind of like casually steps on a child's foot as it goes to move forward. This is like the 2025 version of where we are right now with robotics. Yeah. And when you look at, like, Unitree is out there, and these live in the world in some places, obviously in China. And this is the same company that had the one with iShowSpeed that we talked about a couple weeks ago. They're not there yet. It's 2025, but I can see 2027. I can see a world where, like, Optimus and all these other things could be very useful.
This thing has a grudge When you watch the video of this Unitree, it's not like, oh, I accidentally, scuffed your Sketcher. This thing is like 4 or 5 stomps on this young child's foot until the sneaker comes off, and then an about face, and it walks away.
Where do you think it's going, by the way? That's my question, because it's clearly going somewhere. It got mad, and it's like going to go to like the.
It's on its way to the KinderCare.
It's good. It's good. I'm out. I'm done. I'm sick of this. I'm moving over to the Walden books. I got to read some self-help books to get me out of this career.
Prepare for this, friends, because I do think potentially beta testing by end of next year. I mean, maybe even by end of this year. Who knows how much these companies are really going to push it. I don't think they'll be safe, but internal beta testing, 2026, 2027, let's say for sure, you'll be able to have one of these, probably lease it, high monthly something in your home, and it'll likely be teleoperated, and that will seem insane for a lot of people. And then very quickly, folks are going to get comfortable with someone someplace else in a shipping container, a bunker, or maybe just on their computer, right? In an augmented reality headset, piloting a robot around their house to do their laundry and to puppet them like a TikTok dancer.
I can't wait. I'm going to have 18 of them in my world. I'm good. That's going to be my job. I'll just have 18 I'm doing at once, and I'll be running them all through my augmented brain. But Kevin, how is all this going to get paid for? Because this sounds like a lot of expensive development. It sounds like we've talked a lot about how compute is something that's going to be very expensive in the future.
I'm so glad you asked. How are we going to pay for it? Through a Patreon, through your...
Oh! I wasn't expecting us to go there.
We might as well go there real quick, Gavin. Like, subscribe, engage, and if you care, throw $5 in our Patreon tip jar. It gets you nothing, but it makes us feel very, very warm and tingly. And who doesn't love that?
That's right. I feel warm and tingly all the time. I actually don't need it because that's like my kind of standard setting. Please go to our podcast and review us. Give us a 5-star review. We love when people review us on podcast platforms. Thank you so much. And like, follow, and do all the stuff. We only grow because you guys grow. And we had a great, by the way, last week was a huge show. A bunch of viewers on YouTube came in and saw us. So if there's somebody that saw us and they like, those guys are morons, welcome. That's us.
That's so presumptuous that they were going to be back for another week. Man, I hate this
they
thing.
love
subscribe, bells. But seriously, thank you all.
Yes. So how will all this stuff get paid for, Kevin, in the real world?
By the Saudis.
Yes, which is really a weird thing. So if you missed this, Elon, Sam Altman, Jensen Huang, and a bunch of crazy big tech people were in Saudi Arabia this week in a big meeting that I could describe as nothing more than a GoFundMe for the future, right? This is like a GoFundMe where you show up and shake the hand of obviously one of the richest nations in the world, the Saudis, and there's a lot of money that exists both in the Saudis and other places internationally that the AI community at large is trying to unlock for better or for worse. And I think, Kev, this is like, obviously there's a lot of political stories here that I don't want to get into on this podcast, but this is where the money, where the rubber meets the road, right? Like they need to build more infrastructure to have the compute. Sam Altman very famously said when the GPT-4o image generation thing happened that he did not have enough compute. And that is the biggest company in this space, one of the biggest companies compared to Google and Meta maybe. Yeah. But still, that's a big deal. So this is just the continuation of like, how do you get more cycles of compute? And the Saudis and other people in the Gulf region are actually putting money into this.
When you look at this thing, like Blackstone Group, BlackRock, IBM, Citigroup, Boeing, Alphabet and Google, Amazon, NVIDIA, Palantir, Halliburton, like this. If I had my my yarn on my corkboard,
you're the conspiracy. This is all the pieces at once. Yeah.
But this is right. This is all the major players, and I know I'm sure I just activated somebody that's one of our new viewers in a sleeper cell. But like that's who was going and pressing the flesh. These are the folks that need the hundreds of billions of dollars to make it happen, and now you know who they're courting. It also reads like our wedding invitations.
Really? Is that who you invited to your wedding, Kevin? Those people?
Well, I saw the footnote that Rita Hoffman was supposed to attend but didn't, and I'm like, yep, that tracks. That's my wedding.
That tracks. All the people.
I invited all of them. No one showed up.
In addition to this, there is breaking news that OpenAI, again from the information, that OpenAI is pursuing another Stargate project in the United Arab Emirates. So this is just another example of big money that exists internationally that is going to be poured into AI. And in part, like, I think, this is I am not an economist, but this is just a world at large. The Arab nations in general have been trying to figure out how do they move away from an oil-based economy, because you have to assume at some point we solve oil. Obviously, Tesla and all these other companies got us to battery-powered cars. We're not there yet, and there's a lot of still growth to go. But AI is the new oil, right? It is the new digital oil is how people are talking about it. So, of course, you would think all these countries that have a lot of extra cash would fold into this. And it just seems like we're going to be seeing lots and lots more of these giant money situations kind of poured into AI.
Look, there's going to be massive spend. And again, you have to keep your eye on the prize. We're going to have robots in the home helping with elder care. We're going to have medicine breakthroughs. We're going to have new sorting algorithms. We're going to have an infinite, and I truly mean endless supply of baby podcasters.
That's and right. All of the money in the world is going to baby podcasts right now. Can you imagine how much pure money is being spent on making baby podcasts, Gavin?
Well, look, I always read those things which are not true necessarily about how much water it burns, like how much water evaporates whenever you ask a basic query of ChatGPT, which a lot of those things are sensational, but I do shudder to think of like how many trees must be felled so that we can get another clip of baby Theo Vaughn.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. If you haven't been on socials, I'm sure you've probably seen these. The baby podcasts have taken over social media, both on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, on YouTube Shorts, everywhere. The first one of these really was the guy. I mean, we'll get into who really did it first. We'll get into who really did it first in a second. But the first big one of these was the same guy who made the Jesus podcast that blew up a month or so ago, John LaJoie, who's a kind of an old school YouTube star. He made one where a baby interviewed his dog, right? And it was a baby interview his dog, and it's got like millions and millions of views on TikTok and a bunch of other places.
Welcome to the Talking Baby podcast. On today's episode, we'll be talking to the weird-looking person who lives at my house. Thanks for being here, weird-looking person.
Well, thanks for having me. As you know, you are my third favorite person in the world, third behind the two larger people that we also live with.
And then Theo Vaughn, the famous podcaster who now seems to be like one of the most culturally influential voices in America, made or had somebody make and posted on his own handles a baby version of his own podcast.
If you pet a dog and he don't walk off, God, I love that. God, I love that.
And now they're everywhere. But we did do it first. Kev, let's play a very quick shot of our Baby Joe Brogan podcast that, do you have a date on that? It came from like 6 months ago, maybe?
So this was from back in August of 2024, Gavin, when we were babies ourselves. Yes. And this is Baby Joe Brogan interviewing baby Terrence Howard.
Terrence, it's a real honor to have you here on the Baby Joe Brogan experience. When you say number one plus number one equals number two, why... What do you mean?
The thing about all this, it's vibrational. Look, you do a number one, you got a wet diaper, right?
Sure. Yeah. That's how it works.
Okay, now I'm saying you do another number one, then vibrations, and voila. A number two.
But Terrence, it doesn't work like that.
You've got to keep your mind open here. Okay, I just had a vibration, Joe.
Oh, the good vibrations. And to Gavin's point, yes, I do think we were early here, and I can just see from the view count, way less successful.
It's way less successful. We have gotten a lot of new viewers, and I hope that didn't turn you off, new viewers or listeners, to what we used to do. Maybe don't explore the archives if that's the case. But Kevin, I want to tell everybody just how easy this is to do now, and that you can go do it yourself. It's very simple. I did it in about a half an hour this morning.
You're about to give people some alpha here, some intel that others are trying to charge like $100 for on various services, which is like, I mean, listen, no disrespect to the hustlers that are hustling, bless you, but like, here we go, friends. Grab your pencils and pads.
Yeah, and by the way, one thing that's really interesting about that is that why that the idea of spending this much money on it exists is because these videos are getting so big. Some of them have like tens of millions of views that like they actually are money making for some people. So it becomes this whole hustle bro thing. But here's the very dead simple version. And you can do this for free. You can only really do it for free if you haven't used some of these tools before, but there are pretty simple kind of subscriptions. There's two things that I use: Runway's references, which we'll talk briefly about, and then Hedra, and then I edited them together myself. So basically, Runway's references allows you to upload photos of people and then turn them into something else. You can also straight up do this in GPT-4o image gen, which again is free. You can upload a photo of yourself or whoever and make a baby. But Kevin, I uploaded a photo of the two of us from last week's thumbnail. And it was just, I took the background out. It was just the same pictures. I said, turn the two men in image one, that's the reference connection, into 18-month-old toddlers in a podcast studio angled towards each other with podcast mics in front of them. So I got out of that a two-shot of these two babies that were close enough to us for now. And again, maybe you want to do multiple versions of this to try. I then literally screen grabbed them as vertical. So basically, I took the two pieces of the thing, screen grabbed them as essentially vertical format videos. I uploaded into Hedra with the audio from last week's episode where we were talking about the centaur, just a tiny bit of it to show everybody. And that just said in the Hedra prompt, just said baby gesturing while talking. So maybe play this result, which is a pretty straightforward thing. And again, not designed to be super funny, but just to give you an example of how it works. But if you pause the video and you zoom in,
why would you? Why
wouldn't you? Because it's like, you're looking for technical things. It's funny, and it's like there's no again, I didn't put jokes in this one because I really wanted to see how quickly I could turn it out. About a half an hour, which is pretty crazy. So now that's a 10-second clip of that thing. But it is really easy to do, and you can go try this yourself. Both Hedra and Runway have, I think, free trials that you can get across this, and it's just a good way to open yourself to a cool AI video project.
And the Runway references is so powerful. You can feed it up to 3 images, tag them however you want, and then give it a prompt to combine them in any way. So if you have the podcaster, but you want them in a different environment, upload a picture of the environment and tag it as like background or world. And then if you want them holding a particular item or wearing a certain shirt or hat, you can upload that as a separate reference. And you can combine them all into one prompt super easily just by using the @ symbol and the name of the thing that you tagged it as. And I'm really impressed with references. It really allows you to iterate quickly and then start generating video even based off of what you uploaded.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit about at the end of the show about how I use Runway references to interview both myself and as a baby and as a 20-year-old. So we'll go through that. But Kevin, before we move on from really weird videos, I do want to show this Neal deGrasse Tyson deepfake that I saw a ton of people. Yes, that's what I mean. I saw a ton of people not knowing this was a deepfake. And this is just a good example of how close we are to digital artificial media that is completely believable.
Jiggle physics are now in GTA 6. This is groundbreaking news for gooners and the unemployed, but why? You see, it's not the water physics. It's not the beer bottles with bubble trails that's giving everyone a hard-on. No, this is advanced simulation of motion, devoted entirely to how cheeks move.
So if you are not watching the video here, you really, it does look like Neal deGrasse Tyson saying this. It also sounds like Neal deGrasse Tyson saying this. The first cue that is not is the Gooners reference.
Gooners?
Yes, and then hard-on. But there are definitely pathways now where this stuff is very doable and very believable. So all this baby podcast stuff, it just goes to the same point we've talked about forever. Don't believe something is real. Obviously, talking babies is one thing, but that deepfake made me sit up and be like, oh, a lot of people weren't sure about this. And even when I saw it the first time, I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, Gavin, we talked about fraudulence. We talked about, I guess, edgelord max physics. We talked about politics. I guess the only thing left to cover is religion.
Let's get into religion, Kevin. What happened in the religion world?
So we got a new pope, version 14.
Version 14. He's a new model.
I didn't check the patch notes, but yeah, apparently he's built on AI. What is going on?
We don't normally talk at all about this sort of thing. Obviously, it was a huge story. If you haven't seen Conclave, that movie is amazing from last year. I never thought I would like it, but it's the story of how a pope gets decided. And this pope got decided pretty quick. In 2 days, he's American, first of all, which is kind of a big deal. First American pope. But he chose his name, Leo XIV, specifically because the last pope with that name lived through the Industrial Revolution. And he sees the transformative power of AI as something that we all have to take super seriously. So we talked about how last week I said AI conversations are happening at the highest level. Now, Kevin, the AI conversations are with God. So now we have AI conversations happening between the Pope and God himself.
Look, most of AI happens in the cloud. It makes sense.
God, I never thought about that. You're right. That's all what the cloud is actually heaven in our new world. And everybody who loves religion is like jumping into this conversation in our comments right now.
But I hate to say it, Gavin, the sky might actually be falling on the AI world. It is crashing down very quickly because the original sin, which we have talked about quite a bit, all of the data that went into these training models so that they can output the text that it does, the medical diagnoses, the amazing sound and videos, the baby podcasts, all of that stuff. Well, most of it, we believe, was trained on copywritten data by Hollywood films, by all of the podcasts out there, by novels and newspaper articles, et cetera. And for a long while, it was like, listen, these things were just trained like humans would. The same way you and I learn new languages and instruments, Gavin. It's just mimicking, right?
Yes, right.
Well, maybe not.
Oh, no. What happened?
Well, there's some copyright drama happening, Gavin. The U.S. Copyright Office apparently sided with content creators, concluding in its latest report that the fair use exemption likely does not apply to commercial AI
what? It's okay,
training.
Kevin. Something else happened that you may or may not have heard of. The current administration fired the head of the Copyright Office as soon as that messaging came out. So that is the crazy thing that's going on right now. The administration fired the head of the Copyright Office. But, Kevin, there is another twist to this story. But, I don't understand how this is not getting covered more in some ways. Just to be clear, this is, as Kevin mentioned, the original son of AI. And if AI models cannot exist with this, if there is some sort of stop on how these models are going to train themselves, or they put some sort of stop legally on these models from being used, that slows everything down. And I know people have very strong opinions on one side or the other, but this is a big deal. The twist to all this, though, Kevin, is that The Verge has a very long, very detailed story on this, that the firing of the head of the Copyright Office may not have come from people that are super AI pro people.
More like a backfiring. Am I right, Gavin?
Yes, a backfiring. That's good. Good work. Good work. Got any more you want to drop in?
Wonka, 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 Wonka. Hey, Wally.
Oh, it is a Wally the Walrus. It is a Wonky the Walrus story. You don't have to go into super detail, but go read the Verge article. The biggest thing about this is that this could determine the future of not only model training, but how artists get paid and all this other stuff, or if they do get paid. But right now, it sounds like the people in the current administration who are actually hardcore, I don't want to, they describe them in this Verge article as protective copyrightists, essentially people who really want to uphold pop copyright versus the other people who want to kind of eliminate it. Because we did know Elon and Jack from Twitter both are interested in eliminating copyright at large.
Yes, and the article also alludes to the fact that the new regime that's in power wants to stick it to big tech specifically.
Yes.
As much as they want to protect copyright, it's really about sticking it to the technology companies. So that's why we say there might have been a backfiring here, where it's like, hey, get them out of the way. We need weapons free to train all of our AI models. And it looks like the folks that are in power now want to curtail big tech. So at the risk of discussing any further into politics, let's just point people to the Verge article. It'll be in the comments and the show notes. You can check it out if you're interested in that. I do want to shout out one quick thing, Gavin, and that is, Stability AI is a company that early on was making all sorts of waves for all manner of releases, particularly in the image generation space. They were the company behind Stable Diffusion, which kicked off a ton of AI creativity. Well, they had a new post today, Gavin. They're open sourcing Stable Audio Open Small. It's a 341 million parameter text to audio model. I'm going to play a little sample and I'll tell you why I'm even taking up any of your time with this. Ooh. Okay. Oh, see, you were shaking your head, but
I
now
mean, it's fine.
You're lo-fi chilling,
why is this
Gavin.
Exciting? Why is this exciting? I've heard.
Because don't you want to be at the Anthropic coffee shop vibing to that while you're on your MacBook with your mochaccino?
Why? This is exciting, but tell me why.
Here's why. Okay, open source is great. Everybody can go and poke and prod at it and modify it. It's only going to get better because of that open sourcing. It is designed to run on ARM CPUs. What?
That's pretty crazy.
In the majority of
mean?
cell phones.
What does that mean? Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yes, ARM CPUs are in all of your smart devices. Well, a lot of your smart devices. According to their post, 99% of smartphones will now be able to generate music production samples in seconds right on the device, and it does it locally. It's not connecting to the cloud or anything like that. So it's a very, very small model that can generate good sounding music. Now, you might have heard that clip and gone like, oh, I mean, it was fine. It's not nearly state of the art. It's definitely way better than music generation was even a year ago.
Yeah.
And now you go, oh, right, it's in the palm of our hands.
Yes.
So like get ready for an onslaught of music and audio toy based things that are going to be running this model on your cell phones, allowing you to just quickly sample the environment around you and turn it into a beat, or play with friends locally and multiplayer generate a song.
Here's a great idea for a toy, Kevin. DJ Teddy Ruxpin. And what it is a full out kind of a marshmallow style DJ in front of a booth. But you get this for a kid and they learn how to do that as a job. So they're able to sample and do all sorts of stuff. I would buy that for my kid in a second. My grandkid's going to get it and he's going to drive my children crazy. That's my plan. This is that's
when do you
10, 15 years, 20 years from now when my kids have kids, that'll be the plan.
And I guess in this scenario, your children are still talking to you?
Yeah, mostly, because that's not happening right now. But hopefully by then it'll all be fixed.
Kids, Dad made another beat. Dad wants to bond with you. Listen to my music, kids.
It's time to look at some of the fun stuff you did with AI this week. It's AI. See what you did there.
Sometimes you're scrolling without a care. Then suddenly you stop and shout.
Okay, Kevin, we have a very interesting AI video here. It's a long one, but it has gotten a lot of pickup. It is called The Colorless Man. This was created by somebody who's named Source Code 12 on Reddit. I think he's also on Instagram and X and different handles as well. But basically, this is a very cool video of what looks like a black and white TV show, and then they colorize. It's like that big moment in TV from the 60s where they made color TV, but one man does not get colorized, and the story just keeps getting better and better over time. The AI models in this are not the perfect top of the line, but it is a very cool story to show what you can do with these tools. And more impressively, he made it for $600, which is a huge deal. This video is 13 minutes long. It's essentially a TV pilot or a TV special, you could imagine, at that length. So this just goes to show you again what very extensive creativity and these tools can do when they're put together.
Yeah, it's a really, really beautiful short. Everybody should check it out. It reminds me of was it Pleasantville?
Was it called Pleasantville? The one with Reese Witherspoon, right? And
yeah,
Tobey Maguire?
Yeah.
It might have been called Pleasantville, yeah.
You know what? Let's say 100% with certainty it was called Pleasantville.
It was called
let
Pleasantville.
The comments roll in.
It was called Pleasantville.
Also, shout out to Alex Fredo87 over on X. The post says, I've improved my point-and-click video game system. The animations look better now, among other enhancements. And what they're trying to do is recreate those 90s CD-ROM style games.
Yeah,
where you
Sierra
click
games, kind of like. It's like or a Day of the Tentacle, like Tim Schafer's old games, like his OG games too, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and so basically they are generating models with various image gen systems and having it animate walk cycles and trying to put that into a gaming system. And it's just this was, again, the stuff that would take dedicated teams, 40 to 60 people and a lot of money and a lot of time to make systems like this. And now people are just kind of hacking for fun and making stuff happen. The profile for Alex is artist and programmer, and that tracks.
Yeah, I do want to say what this reminded me a little bit is, did you ever play Disco Elysium? Do you know that game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was one of my favorite video games of all time. If you haven't tried it, play it. But it was kind of an updated, really deep and interesting point and click kind of adventure.
Deeper cut. Do you remember Phantasmagoria?
Of course. I love Phantasmagoria. I mean, this is
these
Phantasmagoria. Games are some of my favorite games because you can do stuff. And what's cool about this is just a really weird, kind of half photorealistic, half kind of funky vibe to it. So very cool. And our last thing we want to highlight is a friend of the show. If you've been listening to the show for a very long time, you might remember our friend Poof. He is anonymous, but he came on, forever ago, in the first 10 shows to talk about an AI agentic system he had set up to do D&D. Well, he now has created a whole new AI agentic experiment. This has some little bit of crypto part to it. So if that bugs you, I'm sorry, but I just want to shout this thing out. It's important. He's doing basically a financial simulation using agents on the blockchain, but also these are all kind of comedy characters that interact and trade with each other. It's not set up to be a money-making opportunity. You get these characters as part of your thing and you kind of watch them trade and you can kind of control them and tell them as a team what to go do. this whole kind of experiment starts, I think, tomorrow. That's the day you can kind of watch it roll out. But shout out to Poof. He's one of our favorite creators in this space and does just amazing stuff and really is pushing forward the idea of AI at large, not just in that space on its own. So obviously, if you're not in crypto, that's fine. But this is a very cool experiment to watch online. It could be something interesting over the next couple of days. All right, Kev, this week I did spend some more time with those baby podcast things than I thought I was going to. But I also did a very small experiment to your point earlier about Runway's references. And I wanted to see how far I could take it. And what I wanted to do was see if I could create a podcast between a baby version of myself, the 20-year-old version of myself, and myself right now. And to your point earlier about how to work with Runway references, basically I took 3 images, because you can only use 3 images at the top. But I made my baby photo, which is, me as a cute little baby, me graduating from college at 22, which I would say look like a baby in that picture as well. And then basically I created a layout. And I created a layout and I said, man 2 on the left in just a box. And on the right, I said baby 1. And in the middle, I put a photo of me in the modern day. And at the bottom, I said podcast table with microphones. I uploaded those 3 images at once, referred to each of them, and it generated what is not like, again, it's not perfect because it has a couple small issues with it in terms of the way the microphones are set up. The baby doesn't have a microphone, but it gave me a 3-person podcast with me in the middle, the baby on the left with me, and on the right, I got a 20-year-old version of myself. It was just a really cool use case of watching how this stuff can work. And again, Runway, shout out to you guys. You crushed it. They've updated this a couple times already, and it seems to keep getting better and better. People are finding way more interesting use cases than this even. So keep a track on that and see what else there is.
You can, the same way you kind of did a rough layout of what you wanted the podcast scene to look like. There's a wonderful example. Cristobal Valenzuela, who is the CEO of Runway, has been tweeting out some phenomenal examples of what this thing can do. One of them, which blew me away, was a matrix-style chessboard.
Oh, cool.
That had rows and the columns and rows labeled alphanumerically. Another is a photo of like a museum space, and the third is a photo of like a sculpture. And he basically says, hey, Runway image model, place this sculpture on this exact point on the grid at D1. And the engine looks at the grid, looks at the space, interprets where the space would be with that grid and plops the sculpture.
God, that is crazy.
With realistic lighting and shadows within the environment. And like that camera movements, drawing like, oh, I want this here, this character looking over there. Like there are so many interesting things that people are doing with this tool that I think even they are still discovering what it can do.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's a really cool use case of AI. And obviously we've seen stuff like this before, and Kling and Minimax and all these other models have had it. But I think Runway has kind of solved something pretty interestingly with it. I'm sure people will figure out really creative use cases to do with it going forward.
And lastly, the one that kind of blew my mind too was they uploaded a picture of sand and then a picture of like a wooden stick and said, draw the Eiffel Tower in the sand image using the tool. And when you look, you see a piece of wood and the output result, and it looks like the Eiffel Tower has been scraped into the sand.
That's
and
so
I'm just
cool.
like, come on. So interesting and so elegant. And I too was messing with this all weekend and making projects that will never see the light of day, Gavin.
Oh, they won't?
But you got to see them.
They're not going to see the light of day?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Are they?
Let's just say for right now, there's a project that exists in a nebulous space from a moral standard that was created that we're going to let everybody imagine what that could possibly be. If you've got a guess, leave it in the comments. It is something that was created over the weekend that we have not decided yet if we're going to release it to the world.
I'm super proud of it. I'm super proud of it that I jammed it out in like 2 hours, considering what it is.
It was impressive. It was impressive.
But I get why it might be problematic to release it. And if if enough people guess it and want to see it, maybe we'll sort it out.
Don't guess it. Don't guess it. Let me say that again. Not if enough people guess it. If you just say release the Kraken, then release the Kraken, then we will see about maybe letting it out or talking about it next week. But that's what, if you want to see that, comment release the Kraken in the YouTube comments. All right, everybody.
I don't think we release it. All right. Love you.
Love you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.